Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, everyone. Did you know that April is Stress Awareness Month? As PR people, and since we've been living with a worldwide health pandemic, we thought there couldn't be a better time to highlight the advice about stress management and mental health that we've been able to glean from our amazing guests throughout the history of our podcast. So here we're highlighting some short snippets on the topic from three of our most popular guests. First, we highlight Sheila Hamilton, who was a morning show host on Kink FM, but then started devoting herself full-time to mental health advocacy after her husband's tragic suicide. We talked about how, as service providers, PR people have a tendency to over-deliver out of fear. And we also talked about how our physical health plays into our mental health. Next, we have Mark Mohammadpour, who found himself overweight and unhappy while working at top PR firms. After losing over 100 pounds, Mark now provides health and wellness coaching through his company, Chasing the Sun. We talked about how PR is a stressful job and the most common mistakes communicators make with their health. And finally, we have Libra Forde, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Self Enhancement, Inc., and I've become obsessed with her inspiring motivational minute videos that are posted to her Facebook page. We talked about the importance of daily routines, breathing, and breaks. Hopefully you'll find some relief and motivation. And so this is where our boundaries we don't keep our boundaries intact. And actually, you might even call this codependency. I don't know. I do have a psych degree, but I don't have practice in psychology. But right. So there's that. And I know for me, when I was working in fear, in the end of March, early April, very fear motivated, thinking that I was going to lose all my clients. So what happened was I over delivered, which is nice. That's great for clients. But for me, I hit a wall. I was working like a crazy woman, like all 7 days a week in my bathrobe, like thinking I don't have time to do anything. And I hit a wall, and I put back in my exercise routine because that was even lacking. Yeah. And this exercise, originally I would go for walks every day to get vitamin D, but I need more than that. So I put back in some Zoom exercise, and that helped. And then I've just kind of taken a step back on what I'm doing. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that for people.
Well, it's fascinating what you just described, Amy, because I've delved so deeply into the brain science. Like, what happens when we're under threat or crisis is that the fight or flight area of our brain, the amygdala, is supercharged. It's really firing, and it's telling the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that likes consistency, to know what's happening next. When are we going back to work? It loves those kind of things. The amygdala takes it over because it can't tell what's next. It doesn't know what's happening. It doesn't know where the truth lies. And so the amygdala is really firing that kind of the chemicals in your body that make you, just as you described, kind of like crazy energetic, hypervigilant, very doing oriented, making sure that everyone is okay, and what's wrong with that is that unless we know that we have super stores of cortisol, which is what the brain is asking us to use when that's happening, you're going to hit a wall that's really can be very, very dangerous for your health long term. A lot of the illnesses that we think of, like chronic fatigue and whatever, those people describe what you're describing in the months prior to that. I was just hyper all the time. I was taking care of everyone. I was making sure. So we have to be really conscientious about, okay, I see myself cleaning out my closets again for the ninth time. I see myself hypervigilant around contacting that particular customer. What am I doing for myself right now? And I have really taken my clients through a very regulated grounding yourself exercise where when you start to see that happen, I am not kidding you. It's really important to sit down, to ground your feet into the ground, to feel your butt in your chair, to take some huge cleansing breaths to oxygenate your brain, and then name 5 things you see in the room. My computer, that game, my dog, so that you begin to get the brain back online. It's really important to go through these daily, if not as often as you can, mindfulness tips so that you're not carried away in that constant kind of doing, exhausting circle that really does land a lot of people in psychiatric wards. It is
Okay.
one of the reasons why.
That's good. Well, yeah, I was like, oh, I should have talked to you earlier. And I do have to say.
That's hilarious.
And it's better now. But I do have to say, though, it does sound good from a client or a boss perspective, like go, 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 work, work, work. But what I realized, I might have been putting out more, but what I was putting out, we can't use either. See,
dear.
so because we have to be, we can use some of it, but we can't. In PR, we have to be strategic and we have to think about how we do things. And so it's not like, so less is more in PR.
A person who's quite practiced and mindful about that routine, it carries over into your mental health as well. So moving your body every day. It doesn't have to be rigorous exercise, but you really should move your body every day to offload stress and anxiety. Having someone that you trust that you can talk to every day without judgment, someone who will listen to you, who actually doesn't attempt to fix your problems or tell you what to do, but who listens objectively. Making sure that you have some sort of either a mindfulness practice, prayer practice, meditation practice, something that allows us as human beings to actually stop and observe our thought process and observe how we are dealing and coping with the outside world is super, super important. And then good nutrition, really hugely important. I just went through a study that showed that people in Toronto who were in a double-blind study, people who just put in a multivitamin and a B vitamin during crisis reported 75% improvement over a control group. Simply because they were watching their diets, really paying attention, and then getting the multivitamin that they needed for the nervous system to be able to cope. And then I think lastly, sleep. It's just anyone who doesn't sleep knows how crazy it can make you.
Yes.
And sleep hygiene is so underestimated in this world where we're supposed to be really busy and stressed out. But I will tell you, if you're not sleeping during this time, it's likely that your performance is going to suffer. And ultimately, the people around you suffer. And so sleep is so hugely important. And then I always believe that mental illness is a crisis of sort of body, mind, and spirit, and that if you do have something you truly believe in, if you do have something you're completely passionate about, if you have a group of people who you hold up and communicate with on the regular, you have to make sure right now that you're making those connections and that you're feeling the kind of camaraderie that really binds us as human beings.
So I just want to go back to that stat because it's like I can't drive this home, fact home hard enough, because I think we missed over the whole thing, which was we are on par with stress with, reporters, I guess, maybe that's obvious, but fighter pilots or what is it, surgeons, something crazy.
Yeah, so every year there's a survey that's done by CareerCast, and they look at what are the most stressful industries out there, and public relations executives are right up there with journalists, firefighters, enlisted military personnel, air traffic controllers, pilots, surgeons. On the face of it, you look at this group and you say, do we really fit in? Well,
and it's also like, I'm thinking, who do we think we are? Because no one's health or lives are in our hands. So it's like, okay, we need to get over ourselves a little bit, but
we do. But then I think about some of the roles we do play. If you are a public information officer, for instance, which is in our industry, you're specifically trained to do that. However, they're cut from the same cloth as you and I, Amy. They think about their messaging, they think about their publics, they think about who they need to address to. They are sending messages to people that potentially save lives.
Yeah, so it could save someone's life. So I guess
yeah,
that's pretty stressful.
It is stressful, and I think we need. It's not to put pressure on ourselves, but it is to really check ourselves and understand that we have an important job. Now, let's put it in context with what we're doing. We're not using scapulas. We're not directly saving lives like a surgeon or a doctor or something like that. But I do think we have to take our job seriously, because if we are perceiving ourselves as stressful, whether or not we deserve it or not, there's a reason for it. We need to take it seriously, and then we need to think about our health and our wellness. Because to your point, we are a service industry. We take care of everybody else but ourselves. And this is a topic we need to address, because it is not going to get any easier.
Well, yeah. And so for me to kind of sit here and say, like, why are we so stressed? I'm not validating the stress that we might have. And so not validating it makes it even more stressful. So ignoring it is stressful, but also kind of pushing it aside and saying, like, you shouldn't feel like this. You shouldn't feel like this. Who do you think you are? That's not helpful to yourself.
That's right.
Or others, probably.
Exactly. And I think that was one of the things that I talked about in the workshop is we check our egos at the door a lot. And I asked you and I asked everybody there to check our egos in a little bit, and really for at least the time we're there, understand who we are, understand the impact, understand that we impact people, understand that we are role models for people, and really be reflective and say, who are we as business leaders? Because that's what we are. We don't write press releases. Okay, we do an attack, but let's think bigger picture. We impact businesses and organizations. We are constantly having to fight at the seat of the table for that. And to do that, we have to be mentally and physically prepared to do that. We have to act as role models, because we are building the future generation, folks in PRSSA, students, new professionals who are looking up to us every day, Amy. Mm-hmm, we're looking up to us and saying, this is how I'm supposed to operate.
What are the most common mistakes that you see other communicators doing in their health, whether it's a new professional or a pro?
I think it comes back to control, and it's understanding what is in your control and what's not in your control. I talked a little bit before about getting very tactical when it comes to our health and wellness. So instead of saying, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months, can I say, I'm going to have 3 walk and talk meetings per week? And it's understanding that you can be in control of moving around and your health and wellness, and just making that a priority. I think another thing is, especially if you're a manager or a new professional, is setting some boundaries and talking to your team about when you're going to be available off hours, or and I put off hours in quotes, right? Because our profession is a 24-hour a day business. If there were 25 hours in the day, we would be spending all 25 of them.
Well, and there's just no off hours, basically.
There are no
especially because we follow the news cycles sometimes.
Exactly. And that's okay. We know that going in. We know that we're not going to work in a 9-to-5 environment. However, if someone that we're reporting to is sending emails at nights or over the weekend, I can't manage that. I'm not going to micromanage whether somebody is going to send emails late at night. However, I urge people who do that to really be clear as far as whether or not people need to respond.
You mean if you are the one sending emails off hours, you need to be clear? Correct.
I think there needs to be real clear dialogue amongst the team about when things are being sent and why. Going on vacation is a really big deal for me. For managers going on vacation, before they go on vacation, they need to communicate to their team one of a few things. Either, I'm going to be completely off the grid, I will not answer any emails or take any phone calls, and communicate that to the team, figure out who the proxy is, and be good. Or you're going to say, I am going on vacation, but I am fully available. I'm going to be on every call. I'm going to answer every email. It's as if I'm there, but I'm physically in another destination.
And would you recommend doing it that way?
I would not recommend doing it that way. What I do is, or there's the option of saying, I'm not going to tell anybody when I'm emailing or calling, and I'm just going to dial in and email, and I'm going to surprise everybody. That's also what I don't recommend. What I do, again, this is up to everybody, but I communicate this I've communicated this to my teams I've managed in the past to say, I will always pick up the phone. I will always answer a text. I am not going to email. I'm not going to join a call. But if you need me, I will always be there.
Mm-hmm. So then they think ahead before they actually bother you.
Exactly. And I ask the people that I work with before they go on vacation, they're going to, I'm not going to call them or text them unless I need them. And that is very rare. And they know that when I do, it's because I really need them. But that is a once in a blue moon sort of situation. Yeah. But that's because I trust them when I'm gone vacation and I can rest and relax, and they trust me to not bother me when I'm gone.
So it's about getting all those expectations clear, and then you don't want to be the manager that's always available, because that's setting up a bad role model. And you're actually training up your staff poorly, because let's say in 10 years you are the CMO and you still have a lot of the same team. You've trained them up to totally rely on you, number one, but then also to copy what you're doing, which isn't great for anybody's health or confidence or well-being or client relations.
Absolutely.
So you need to just think about how you are being perceived. And so then I I did follow this. The other day we met and somebody was talking about the emails at night, and actually one of, my colleagues, we kind of do complain about clients emailing us at night. So I knew that that was a hot button for her, but I needed to get an email out at night because I knew I had a meeting in the morning. So I just don't know how to set it up to send at a certain time. I just can't deal with that. So I knew I couldn't send the email even if I drafted it. So I wanted to send it that night, but I prefaced it. It was to a writer and to her, my AE, and prefaced it saying, I'm actually behind because my daughter was sick today. That's why didn't send it to you today. And I have this tomorrow. Read this tomorrow and then write me back. Don't worry about it tonight. Because I know my writer would work on it that night.
Right.
And it's like, it's not a big deal. No. I just don't have the time to send it out later. So I thought that was cool advice I got. And now maybe that's setting the course for how they will be in their careers.
Exactly.
And I kind of want to set that course, that example for some clients. Now, a lot of our clients are great. They're very well balanced. And I did, as you mentioned, you listened to my life. What is that?
Your work balance from July. Yeah.
And one client, I thought it was great that I talked about in my July interview or podcast about work-life balance, that one client, she always just did emails on Saturday. That was her day to catch up. And I could just tell it was her routine. She never said she needed a response from me, but I could just tell after a while. She wasn't even responding back if I wrote back on the weekend. So it was her system. And so that was fine. So I could put that in a box and be okay with that. But now some clients, they are a little reactive and they are working at night. And sometimes you do have to look at, where is that coming from? Maybe there's this particular fear that has nothing to do with you or your work. You can be a little detached from that. Or maybe it is setting up our own, being a role model. And when we do choose to write them at night, we could say, don't feel like you need to respond to this.
I think that's a best practice. And some people, whether you're a client or agency or just in whatever business, we sort of get paranoid in general, and we try to do what we can and have our lives as busy and full as possible. And sometimes that means overworking and not taking a step back. And I want to help people take that step back for a minute and think about their health and wellness. And we spend so much of our time, Amy, thinking about our clients' objectives. We have to think about our own personal objectives, and because ultimately that's what's going to help our mind and body. And
so it's the example of putting your oxygen mask on first.
but I find that has gotten me through these 9 months, getting fresh air every day. But everybody's different. And you got to find that one thing that just keeps you moving, right? And I find if I do that in the morning, it sets up my whole day. So I'm stuck in the house all day, but I go early enough where I feel like, okay, I got that fresh air. I engage with the sky, rainy or not, but I'm out here. And then I come inside, I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then I do it again the next day. But you got to find that one thing, and it's different for each of us. And connect with yourself and be honest with yourself. What is that thing that I need? Maybe it's calling a girlfriend every night. I got one of our staff members every day at the end of the workday, she gets in her car and she drives at least 5 miles to like simulate the closure of her workday. And then she comes back home and is like, okay, now I'm home with the family. And that works for her.
Yeah.
But you just got to find that thing that gets you through another day.
Yeah, that closure is really interesting, and I could kind of talk about that. But when you go outside in the morning, you're a runner, right? Are you always running? Is that your
I run
time?
or bike. I'm a biker too. Or I'll just walk depending on how I day. Like I have hill days. Like the day I ran a hill and I was hell on ice, but I did it. And I've learned to appreciate the climate here, right? Like when I first moved here from Hawaii, all I did was complain, right? It's raining. Oh my God, I hate it. But now that it's my only time I get out, I've learned to enjoy the rain. I've learned to enjoy the clouds. Like I just stand and stare sometimes. So I might just walk. If I'm not really feeling a fast run where I'm not seeing everything, I might walk and just enjoy the scenery. But I mostly run. It definitely clears my head. The endorphins are good for the body. Movement is good for the body.
So this is kind of a random question, but it's not really because I can tell you the tie-in. But so do you have a spiritual or meditation practice?
I do, actually. So I wake up daily. I don't look at anything until I read my spiritual guide. And then after that, I kind of reflect on what I read and what I want to do for the day. And then I'll journal. Not long, because like I said, I don't like to write, but I do journal. It might be a paragraph. And usually the journal is my first kind of processing what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling. And then I do yoga before I do anything else every day.
Ooh. So how long do you do yoga for? I'm sorry. I'm kind of like, I pretend to be organized and like I actually care about a schedule, but I am disciplined in certain ways, but then I never do it. So, but that's why I ask these questions.
So I do yoga in the morning, about 15 minutes, not long, but then before I go to bed, I do 40 minutes. And the reason why I do yoga, again, it's the outcome. So I like yoga. I love yoga in the moment. But the outcome of yoga for me is a peace that I feel. And I have arthritis. I've played basketball for years, and I find I don't have any pain if I do it. And so I stay with it because the outcome means I have a really, really productive day and I'm just not stiff. And then, of course, the grounding of it. So after my reading and writing, the grounding of all of that and kind of my physical being is really helpful for me to be my best self when I then go wake up my kids or, go to work on Zoom, whatever that is.
So, this is a work podcast. So kind of to bring it back, I have heard from a lot of people that those who have kind of a spiritual practice or intention setting practice are successful. The most, and I think that people have written books about this, that the most important, the most successful people do this. And it's not, and when you hear about this kind of like, miracle morning or getting up early, people might think, oh, are you just doing that to, bang out press releases? No, it's really this solitary time, the intention, and then that can help propel you throughout your day.
Yeah. Yeah. It also, I think, has a lot to do neurologically with your brain. We overload our brain so much. We underuse it but we overload what we do use. And it's such a small portion of it. So when I think of your home, right, there might be one room that you just use all the time, and it has like walking tracks of dirt. It has chairs that are kind of lopsided now, and it's just overused. And then you got this whole other room that you never go in. The couch is beautiful. The floor looks great. And you're just like, why? And it's just a habit. It's comfort. And what I find in my meditation time, intentional practices, I get to dive into those unused rooms and figure out how I can use them better. It's intentionally looking at them and understanding them and not avoiding anything. Because the more you avoid, the more harm you're doing for the room and for yourself. So you need to be intentional about making sure you check that. I always tell people, there's a mess in your message. And so once you find that mess, you can clean it up. If you don't know what the mess is, then you can't clean it up. So don't be afraid to look at the message and get to the mess so you can clean it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And literally speaking, for people that are working from home now, I mean, so you're talking about being overloaded all day long. And so when we don't have breaks because we're in our house working, that's a problem. And so, I mean, even let's say I did go to the office, which I did, meaning, well, I don't have the office now, but I used to go to an office. I would still work the same hours. But even the simple act of walking down the hall to go to the restroom is a break. And it was a pretty office. And I could see, it was like there was windows that you could look in and see people. And you could kind of see people that you've made relationships with that that are not in your company. Yeah. And that kind of thing, like that's gone. Yeah. And so, I mean, there's the movement. Yeah. Like walk around the block even. But the idea of meditation is kind of like that intentional thought to, I'm going to switch gears here. Definitely. And so I think that could be a tip for people working from home.
I mean, and also meditation is another thing because not everybody can do it. Breathing is always a form of meditation. It doesn't have to be so thought-induced. Because some people are afraid of thinking like that. The solitude is not something that makes them happy. And I get it. It takes time. But breathing, just stopping to breathe is really helpful. I really like the fact that on Apple Watch, like it's a moment of, they have these breathing minutes. And that's a quick and easy way for you to start. I think the Fitbit does it too. It's just like moments where it just dings you and it's like, stop. Breathe. It really does a lot for your brain. There's all types of science around it. You can just stop and breathe for 1 minute and it will change your entire perspective.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Well, number one, for those that are scared of meditation, it's not really, meditation actually doesn't have to be a big deal. And the reason I actually asked you about it was because you're talking about being outside and moving, and there is moving meditation.
That's right.
So there's that. And then you're also talking about looking up at the sky and, just honoring that. And that's kind of where I got the spiritual question. But speaking of just stopping and breathing, I actually had a therapist tell me once, this was years ago, I was just stressed. I was working a lot, 2 little kids. And her only real advice that day was to just, when you're done with something, whatever it is, on your computer, stop and just acknowledge it and say, I'm done. And that's kind of like that pause. And I do that now? No. And maybe, did I do it once? Yeah, maybe only once, but it helped.
Hello. My mom is really busy right now helping Veracity's clients during these hard times, but she is taking the time to have Fika with me each afternoon. She asked me to let you know sometimes there will be a Fika Talk takeover of PR Talk. Fika Talk is a new video series I'm doing with my mom where she gives the tips for the self-employed and I tell you what the Swedish custom of Fika is. As always, there's a marketing slant. You can listen to our talks here or watch them at veracityagency.com/Fika Talk.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Happy Fika time.
Woo.
We're on a walk today because we're going to talk about breaks. So we're taking our Fika time on the road. And we have our to-go cups. It's a throwback to coffee people.
Yeah,
Which-
doing patties.
If you're old like me, you'll remember Coffee People, and they still have a store actually.
It's kind of like the old Starbucks, apparently.
But better. And I just remembered these big cups, and I had to buy it when I saw it, but they don't fit in your car cup holder, but whatever, I still had to buy it. Okay, so what do we have to say about breaks today, Audrey?
So breaks are really good, especially when you're working really hard and you need to get maybe you can even come up with really good ideas over a cup of coffee, fika, you know? I think why the people in Scandinavia are so smart, because you need that break in the day to just be like me time, you know?
Well, yeah, and you need thinking time. Sometimes you need to shut all the noise off and just think. So with walks, that I've started like not listening to my headphones, and I'm getting ideas.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dangerous because then I get really busy with the ideas. But I've just noticed when I'm not listening to a podcast or music, I get ideas. And I'm feeling like I'm really savoring these walks because there's not enough to do anyways. And so walking has been just like a real treat actually for me. And a lot of people, I think. What about you?
Yeah, it's fun, especially when I walk my dog. Get pet my dog a lot.
But I also have seen that, I've read something, I'll send you the link of what it was, that when you take breaks, you can actually use your brain a little better. So I know you guys are all frantically working, but if you take a break at like designated times, you will work better. And the best time actually I've read to take a break is in the afternoon. So around Fika time. So there you go. So maybe that's why they do Fika at 3 o'clock.
Like, I think, if you go into school, when you went to school, when you had recess, because in recess, it helped you, have active time to get your brains flowing for the math.
Well, yeah. I mean, you need to have a break, otherwise you're not going to perform well.
Yeah.
So this is our break. We took our Fika out on the road, and we're encouraging you to do the same.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell, we may have pre-recorded this because it's nice out right now, and so why wouldn't we record outside? But when I air this, it's probably going to be raining. Oh well.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the PR Talk podcast. Find Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, plus more PR Talk episodes at prtalk.co. And remember to subscribe, rate, and review.